Hello and welcome back to the Data Analytics Leadership Forum. My name is Victoria with the Argyle Group. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our presenters today. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Sponsor booths are accessible from the main agenda page for this event. To ask any questions throughout the session, simply click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Now, I am thrilled to introduce our two speakers for this session, Bob Patterson, Jr., Chief Strategist, AI and IoT at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and Jeff Healey, Senior Director of Vertica Marketing at Micro Focus. Thank you both so much for being here. We are pleased to have Bob and Jeff with us at the Data Analytics Leadership Forum to discuss their presentation titled Achieving Predictive Analytics at Scale. Welcome, over to you.
Thanks, Victoria. Thank you all for joining. Happy holidays. So my name is Jeff Healey. I lead marketing for Vertica, which is part of Micro Focus. And there's going to be three parts to this presentation. Really thrilled to have Bob co-presenting with me. We're going to cover a little bit about kind of an industry outlook covered by IDC. And IDC wrote a paper for us, working with us, that's available to all of you. And Victoria, I know, has sent the link out to all of you. So I'll cover that, talk a little bit about what Vertica is, our value props, who uses us, pass it over to Bob. Bob will cover HPE, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so let's get started. So there was, as I mentioned, a recent webcast, and then also a paper that was written by IDC. Really, really well done by that, a tier one industry analyst firm focused on analytics. And what I did was I put together a summary here of what you can find, and that are some pretty key metrics. One is 87% of CXOs are becoming more intelligent enterprises, their top priority for the next 5 years. And then 70% of managers and kind of director level in the past 12 months have explicitly called for their enterprise to become more data-driven. Hopefully that resonates with many of you, with your organization. Everyone wants to become data-driven, but what does it take to get there? And how are you going to do that right now in the middle of a pandemic and some other challenges that we can see on the horizon? Well, they dug in there with a survey, and they said, okay, despite the uncertainty, over 50% of the enterprises expect spending on analytics to increase or remain stable. Of course, Bob and I like that. We know that analytics is critical to every business, and there needs to be more and more of an investment in platforms, analytical platforms. But what are the key drivers behind needing more kind of modern emerging analytical platforms? Well, it's a changing data and analytics world, right? That we speak to a lot of customers and prospects. And one of these questions was, what data and analytics changes are affecting enterprises? Getting more and more external data. So it makes sense that you hear Hadoop data lakes or a lot of data going to S3, object storage partners that are becoming more involved, right? Where you're tearing off petabytes of data, lots of external data that needs to be analyzed. New internal data. What do you mean by that? Maybe it resides within your data warehouse. Maybe it's business and reporting data. Could be data from in telecommunications call detail records. And there are new data types. Everything from, if you're familiar with some of these terms, Avro and JSON and Parquet and ORC, more and more emerging data types. And then new analytics. And that could be everything from, everyone wants to be doing much more predictive analytics, of course. But there's a lot of kind of business reporting analytics still going on. I speak with a lot of organizations and they say, oh God, we're so far behind and we'd love to be able to do predictive analytics. We want to just understand how the company is performing. Why our support cases are low, right? They just want to understand what happened versus what could potentially happen. Major architectural changes. There are a lot of offerings out there. You need to make sure that you have a platform that can embrace all that's great out there in the industry. It's emerging. And then there's a lot of new cloud BI tools as well that are out there. You need to make sure that they work with your platform. Now, with that all said, with the opportunity is also a struggle with data change and complexity. Data engineers, which is really kind of the key group within most companies, whether you're a cloud-based, hybrid, or on-premises, that are maintaining those clusters and serving up the data to the consumers in the organization. Well, on average, they work with 9 unique data sources and 8 unique targets per pipeline. Lots of different data pipelines, particularly on the size of the business. There are more data pipelines. A third of CXOs complain of siloed data, right? So you've got data in a data warehouse, you've got it in a transactional system, you may have it in data lakes as well. And then biggest challenge cited, too much data, right? So what do you do with all this data? Which part do you analyze? Which parts run the business? Which do you tier off? More data governance and archiving. And then finally, 50% of organizations are very substantially challenged by inability to synthesize data and actionable information. That's what makes you become a data-driven organizations. So looking at platforms, what are the must-haves for decision support at scale? So I won't read all of these, they're in the paper, but many organizations, they say, we speak to them and say, I don't want to copy or move the data. I want to be able to analyze that data in place. So we're seeing the unification of data analytics in that way. Out-of-the-box support, being able to work with machine learning, supporting real-time service level agreements. That's not just uptime, by the way. There's many industries where, in telecommunications in some countries, where if they have an audit or they need to be able to provide some information, answer to a question, normally they would have a day or days, and now it's down to hours. So you need to make sure that you have an analytical platform underneath that can support the scale, the performance, and the concurrency. Now, the last slide I believe that I have here in terms of the paper is, this is kind of the summary slide. So this is kind of the outcomes of, really performant analytics. 49% speed of new product service development, 43% productivity, 39% customer satisfaction. I don't think we need to sell any organization on the value of analytics, but it's what can you expect for the goals that you set out to achieve, and what's the platform you need to make sure that it can work with all of your other tools in there, and not just take an approach of saying just put all of your data in one. We know those days are gone. Good news here is that IDC has found that 75% of organizations have gotten value derived from analytics projects that have exceeded expectations. So huge opportunity despite any type of economic downturn. Lots of investment happening in these platforms. So what are some of those platforms? So what we want to talk about is Vertica and HPE. So Vertica is part of Micro Focus. It's a product group, and it's a unified analytics warehouse. What does that mean? Remember I mentioned around data silos, lots and lots of data in these different data stores. You need to make sure that you have an analytical platform that can reach out and analyze that data in place without forcing you to put it all in one place. Right, copying and move the data takes a lot of resources, wastes a lot of resources, and it costs a lot of money. Vertica is three things. It's a data warehouse. Right? So many organizations, prospects, they say, well, what's the underlying database? It is a database. You can load and store very large volumes of data for the fastest analytical performance. Right? So what often happens is there'll be data in a data lake that'll be maybe 5x the amount of data volume. When they see the analytical performance with Vertica, more data will go in there because that's the one way through our ROS data format and compression and columnar architecture, you get the best speed and scale. It's also an analytics and machine learning platform. If you're working with your platform, of course, there are a lot of tools, R and Python, programming languages and things like that needs to work with. But with Vertica, you can take a complete end-to-end machine learning approach, and they can do it all within database. Because you've got the largest data volumes there, you want to build your models based on the full corpus of the data for accuracy. But again, we don't say you have to do that. You can take that approach and do it all with a SQL-based approach. Or you can also export data to other platforms using R and Python. And when you want to build your models on the full volumes of data and you want to be able to score them for complete accuracy, you can now import those models into Vertica, which is becoming more common among the data science community. So the unification is the data analyst and the data scientist, where the data engineer is able to meet both of their needs and accommodate them with the data that they're providing, the same data. And it's also a query engine. Right? So you better be able to bring analytics to the data, whether that's S3 or HDFS data lakes, and also all the formats that they have, Oracle and Parquet and many others. Taking Vertica as a really performant query engine and analyzing that data in place. So it's three things. Some of the customers that you see, if you go to Vertica.com, you're going to see a who's who of kind of data-driven organizations. Been working with them for some time. Philips around IoT analytics for predictive maintenance for a lot of their medical equipment, diagnostic equipment. The Trade Desk around ad tech analytics. One of the largest data warehouses on AWS, 400 plus nodes, 11.5 petabytes of data. Uber, the list goes on. And of course, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, which is a customer case study that I want to just touch on. And I believe that's this one here. So this is an interesting story. So Nimble Storage, before it was acquired by HPE, adopted Vertica. Right? So they needed an analytical database to be able to analyze all the sensor data off of the sensors that came in their arrays of Nimble Storage in all these data centers. What was the whole reason for that? Well, the CEO at the time said wanted to have the #1 net promoter score reading across the industry. And they were able to achieve that through their predictive maintenance initiative. They were so successful with it that Hewlett Packard Enterprise actually acquired Nimble Storage. And now what they're doing is, it's called, the predictive maintenance platform is called InfoSight, and now they're applying that across all of their offerings. Right, and this is what's really making Hewlett Packard Enterprise a differentiator, because they want to be much more of a partner versus being reactive and having any system down issues with their software-defined approach. The numbers are here: 287% ROI, payback period of 6 months, annual benefit of $13 million. Really, really amazing. And I think what the most important stat beyond, of course, a lower TCO and a rapid ROI is decreasing support team calls by 90% annually. 86% of support cases now closed automatically. I imagine any organization would want to take advantage of that. Hewlett Packard Enterprise is doing it through the partnership with Vertica, particularly for the InfoSight platform. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of Vertica, a little summary around the industry and what the trends are, how to become more a data-driven organization, what are the considerations. Again, read that paper. But I want to pass it over to Bob now, and he's going to cover Hewlett Packard Enterprise's approach. Bob, you want to take it from here?
Thanks, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine.
So there have been a number of responses from HPE globally regarding the pandemic. We've donated a very large amount of supercompute, AI and data science resources to the different entities that are researching and combating the disease. One of the projects that we did that we're very proud of in partnership with Vertica, taking advantage of the query engine and the analytics and onboard machine learning capabilities that Jeff just described, was around a search engine that allowed medical researchers to search some 30,000 different documents and records in disparate repositories spread out across the globe. What the researchers were able to do is, instead of searching on a single keyword or on a phrase, again, given the capabilities that Jeff just described, they were able to ask questions of the system and then get information pertinent to what it was that they were trying to research. As you can imagine, these questions are very complex as the researchers look to understand the transmission, incubation, genetic factors, risk factors, all about the disease, and then cross-analyze with other work that's been done as well. So something that we're very proud of that we were able to put in place on HPE's high-performance compute, combined with the capabilities that Vertica brings to the table. The next use case is a little more traditional, right? So as you see, Vertica plays well across industry, regardless of the different industries out there. If you've got a situation where you need to access data, analyze that data, move it, protect it, secure it, Vertica is going to be a strong play. In this case, large bank, financial industry, we can't share the name of the customer, but you definitely recognize the name of this bank. And what they were looking at was a data warehouse modernization. So what a lot of our customers are finding out is that their current data warehouse or traditional data warehouse implementations cannot support the complexities and the different things that Jeff just described based on the IDC report. So from a modernization standpoint, we were able to introduce the Vertica platform that helped them with some of their challenges around complexity of the financial instruments that the investors and analysts are bringing to the table, and using AI to try to go out and analyze these markets. As you can imagine, the regulatory scrutiny, being compliant, being able to be auditable, all of those things, again, looking for responses in real time and with high levels of accuracy to be able to prove out the things that they're doing. So with the implementation of the Vertica platform, you can see the results there. Billions of rows of data, the queries 500 times faster, and those are real numbers. What we see a lot of times is that Vertica performance improves so drastically that many times the customers are kind of take a step back and say, are you sure those numbers are accurate? But 500 times faster is definitely an accurate number. This solution was 75% smaller than the competitive offerings from an infrastructure standpoint. So working with HPE, we can deliver an optimized, a highly efficient footprint so no resources are wasted and you're not paying for things that you don't use. And this allowed the bank to improve risk analysis, fraud detection, et cetera, all the things that they needed to do to be successful. So very strong play here that is repeatable and can work across different entities. From a solutioning standpoint, the partnership with Vertica has allowed us to do joint engineering, joint solution development. We're able to come together, build, test, certify, validate the different solutions that we put together. We build reference architectures on our optimized infrastructure. So very strong, tight play here that enables us to deliver high-quality solutions out the door. A few that we want to highlight here. Jeff mentioned the unified analytics platform. The ability to go from end to end, right, from the edge to your core, whether it's your data center or it's cloud, and be able to analyze the data from your different disparate platforms. Sometimes those platforms are siloed, especially when you start looking at edge implementations, on a single platform, providing a high-speed analytics and the other capabilities that Vertica brings to the table. The SQL on Hadoop is still a strong play. There is a very, very large investment in Hadoop and Hadoop data repositories across the customer base. And also, from an additional standpoint, we find that many of our customers have a high degree of SQL capabilities. So the ability to provide Vertica on top of those Hadoop infrastructures, utilize those SQL capabilities to access that data, and now bring the AI, machine learning capabilities, and other things that Vertica does very well to those databases is a very strong play. It also allows customers to utilize a larger data source when they're working on some of their products and some of the solutions that they're looking at. So as opposed to a smaller data sample, they can look across their entire data storage and pull in the databases that they're looking for. The edge play is very strong. So the IoT space, the edge space, hopefully now you've heard a lot about that, very strategic from an HPE standpoint. And now the ability to take the strengths of Vertica from the cloud, from the data center, incorporate those at the edge, from a data gathering analytics standpoint for edge IoT plays is a really, really strong play that we're seeing in this space. And then lastly, the S word. Right, security. The security capabilities that Vertica brings now from end to end across the different data repositories that our customers are finding in their space. Please excuse the small bullets in the middle there. Those are the things that I've just discussed and other things that Jeff has also talked about. But I want to point out that the Vertica platform is supported across our family of products throughout our portfolio. And on the far right there, I want to highlight our HPE GreenLake capabilities. So GreenLake being our consumption-based modeling where you pay for what you need, only pay for what you use. You have the ability to scale up and scale down, a number of beneficial factors there from a financial standpoint, and we can also implement that on your Vertica solutions. So if you're looking at Vertica implementations, please have the GreenLake discussion and look about how that can bring additional benefits to what it is that you're trying to do. Vertica in Eon mode is a bit of a new implementation. So traditionally, Vertica was implemented on a cluster-based shared nothing architecture. It evolved into a cloud implementation, and then customers eventually said, hey, we want to have that cloud implementation on-prem. And that's what Vertica in Eon mode is, based on the HPE's Apollo family of servers and a Scality ring. So in this scenario, we can separate the compute and storage. There's now shared storage implementation on Scality and the things that Scality brings to the table. Software-defined scale-out object storage runs well in a cloud environment, scales to petabyte sizes. But now I can have highly optimized compute nodes optimized for my workloads. So if I've got a memory-intensive workload or a compute-intensive workload, I can build servers, assign them to those workloads. I can dynamically move them to different workloads as necessary, and they can all share that same storage repository to access different sets of data. I can also ramp down resources as I'm not using them, right? So again, going back to the GreenLake implementation could play in this scale. So a lot of benefits from Eon mode. If it's something that you haven't looked at, I highly suggest that you look into that for scenarios where you'd like to have an on-prem cloud-based implementation. With that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff to close us out.
Thanks, Bob. Great information, right? So definitely learn more about the Vertica and HPE partnership. So as I mentioned, this IDC white paper, really well done, Predictive Analytics at Scale. It's what we base this presentation on. You can find the link there, or you'll be able to get all these resources afterwards. And then if you want a quick summary view, watch our video. right? So Vertica with HPE and Scality, exactly what Bob just covered, that's available in that video as well. So lots of resources. Definitely get up to speed learning more about this great partnership. I think next we're going to go with a poll survey, and hopefully everyone can see that. And the question is, have you implemented or do you plan to implement data warehouse migration in the next year? And you have your 4 answers there. I'd appreciate if everyone could answer that. Let us know. You're in the midst of a migration. You plan to migrate. Maybe you want a little more information how we can get you there, particularly helping, having a cloud optimized architecture on premises or in a hybrid environment with virtue of Scality and HPE. Or you don't have migration plans this year. Maybe you're pushing off to the following year. So give you a moment to answer that and click submit, and then we'll see the results. And here we are. All right, so interesting. So we have some that are either in the midst or plan to migrate this year. That's 20%. Maybe if you want a little more information, we'll definitely be following up with you. And then you have 60% no migration plans for this year. That could be due to cost reductions or what have you. Doesn't mean that there's a full migration. One thing around that we should mention, and Bob mentioned that around enterprise data warehouse modernization. It's funny, we speak to a lot of different prospects and they say, I can't move off of my data warehouse completely. That's not the idea behind it. Many workloads for different cases, right? So we'll take on certain workloads while the data warehouse is still running, maybe eventually down the line, if it makes sense, is to retire that data warehouse or to work more closely with the data lake. So interesting there. Bob, anything else you want to add around the survey or things that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, in hindsight, I think one of the answers should be we've already done our data migration, right? So maybe there's a subset of those who are not planning it because they've already completed it. So that'd be something to look into and highlight. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And we can build those hybrid implementations, where we can access data from the traditional data warehouse as well as from a new, highly infrastructured. AI-capable data repository like Vertica, right? So if we've got some scenarios where we need to find the right mix, we could certainly implement those as well.
Yeah, no, great points. That's right. We know there are many that migrate over with that slide. Yeah. They're some of our joint customers, so excellent point. Okay, Victoria, I think we're going to go to questions now, if there are any. So you just let us know.
Yeah, well, thank you both so much for your time. This was such an exciting, informative presentation. We had a couple questions from the audience. So there was some questions surrounding the machine learning concept. So how is this platform different? And can you provide some examples of how this all-in database increases reliability for accuracy and or troubleshooting bias?
Sure, yeah, no, I can cover that. And then, Bob, if you want to cover any more around ML or AI, sure. So touched on this as far as Vertica being a machine learning platform. This is interesting. We worked with, years ago, we built in this capability for Vertica, right? And when we explain the amount of algorithms that we support, many organizations say, well, linear regression, logistic regression has been around for years. So what? What's the difference here? Because everyone wants to know what algorithms you support. The difference here is that not just the algorithms, but the analytical functions that are in database in Vertica, they've been rerun so you can take advantage of the full cluster. Why is that important? When you hear many data scientists just want to sample the data. Well, there was one bank that did that approach with some downsampling, some sampled data. And what they realized was that their model wasn't accurate because it was based on a lot of bot traffic. It was a clickstream analytics use case, right? So how accurate can your predictions be if you're basing it on a sample of the data? So we have the analytical functions, everything from data preparation to building your models using the algorithms to much more of the hooks now with like PMML. Using that language. So the models that you developed in the languages that you prefer are Python, TensorFlow for edge-based kind of analytics. We support that now. So think of every step in that process. You can base your models on the full corpus of the data, not a subset of that data. You can take a complete SQL-based approach, which many of organizations like, or you can have a combination. That's where you're unifying the analytics analysts and the data scientists so that the tools you've grown to love, we support those as well. So it's a full end-to-end approach with in-database machine learning. Bob, I don't know if you want to cover anything else around ML or AI.
Yeah, one of the scenarios I've seen are customers that are looking to implement analytic capabilities but don't have those data science skill sets in-house, right? So being able to utilize the Vertica platform, which has many of those capabilities or tools or algorithms already built in, flattens the curve a little bit for them as they go to implement those types of capabilities in their environment. So that's one of the benefits that I've seen Vertica bring to the table, just in terms of having those capabilities built in. It lessens the amount of skills that customers have to have on hand at that point in order to move forward.
Yep, great additional point. Thanks, Bob. Okay, Victoria, any other questions come in? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. We have, of course, yeah, we have one that very similar to where Bob was just heading. So how difficult is Vertica, how the platform more, how difficult is it from an adoption and learning perspective?
Good, very good question. So, we get this a lot when we go into these modernization initiatives, and they say, hey, we're an Oracle shop, or we're a Microsoft shop, or, we use Teradata. It's all based on SQL. It's all anti-SQL based, right? The only thing proprietary about Vertica, it doesn't make it an open source platform or a very open platform, is the data format that we save the data in. That's a ROS format. Other than that, if you know SQL, you can use Vertica, right? Should be a really short learning curve, provided that you have a SQL team, particularly data engineers. Lots of different features and functions. I mean, the one thing about Vertica being a Vertica 10, there is a lot in the box. So the key is that you make sure that you bring your team up to speed on the product. There's enough differences between Vertica and other relational databases, but it's a relational database all based on SQL, a lot of analytical functions in the box. And one plug that I'd like to make is go to Vertica Academy, academy.vertica.com. It's all free training and resources that we've taken over the years, and we made it all free, workshops, everything, so you can get up to speed. We know it's super important to train our customers, and we do that in a free way. Bob, anything else from your experience with Vertica? Any differences?
Yeah.
Or
I would say one thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to have your data in Vertica to take advantage of the capabilities of Vertica, right? So the SQL is just one access method. There are a number of different access methods, a lot of open source tools that can be utilized, in order to access data that's in different repositories, and then take advantage of the capabilities that Vertica brings to the table. So I would just throw that out there as well.
Great point, Bob. And, I think I touched on a little bit as far as all that support. We have external tables, which is a very cost-effective way to analyze that data in place, whether that's Oracle and Parquet and other types of data file formats that are living within data lakes like HDFS and S3 and the like. We're constantly building out more integration, so you're not forced to put it all in one spot. It's a great point.
Great, thank you. We have time for one more question. So how has the platform positively impacted data governance strategies? And can you provide some examples?
Jeff, can you repeat that question, please? I had just a little trouble hearing that one.
Sure, no problem.
No, Jeff, I can hear Jeff more clearly if that's okay.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Oh, sure. No, so I think it was Victoria. How has Vertica positively impacted data governance strategies? Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Yeah, right on. So what I would say is take a look at that day in the life slide. Right, so data governance is kind of a very broad category. So a lot of tools and things like that out there for data governance, ETL tools and the like. What I would say in terms of how has Vertica kind of positively impacted different parts of organizations in a variety of ways. If you look at that day in the life slide and all the case studies that we have, it's all about outcomes. Right, so we look at a lot of different analytical use cases. We're not oriented by vertical. But we are by large volumes of data where you need to grab insight and be able to derive insight from that. And that's everything from clickstream analytics for, within ad tech to be able to determine which ads to show at certain times, optimize your ad spending, to predictive maintenance in analyzing the sensor data volumes so that you can prevent downtime and have a tighter relationship with your consumers. That's a little bit about the outcomes. Bob, you want to talk at all about data governance and all? I know that's a kind of a bigger picture there.
Yeah. Data governance is a very large picture, and I think one of the things you have to look at, or one of the impacts that it's had, is going back and customers taking a closer look at their processes and procedures that they have in place around data governance. When you start looking at breaking down data silos, you start looking at compliances around security, around protecting personal identifiable information. I think that's the right terminology. There are a lot of different layers from a governance standpoint that our customers need to look at, and sometimes need to take a step back and rehash or revamp those strategies before putting a solution like this in place, or definitely after putting the solution in place to make sure that things line up from a compliancy standpoint.
Excellent. So thank you both so much for being here today. I think this is a fantastic session. So we'd like to thank Bob and Jeff for their thought leadership presentation. So just to the audience, this session, along with all of today's sessions, will be available on demand for the following week. Our next session will begin at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time after the break, and that will be a panel discussion titled, "Are you prepared for CCPA 2.0? Understanding the fine print of Proposition 24 and how it impacts your organization's data uses and ethics." Your browser will automatically redirect you to the next session after the break. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Holidays.
Right on.
Happy holidays.